Welcome, everyone, to another Knocked Conscious. I'm so excited. We just had Freedom Fest a couple of weeks ago, but I met this young lady for the first time ever, but I've seen her floating around like a ghost for the last few Freedom Fests. I just saw this visage walking by. I'm like, who's that? There she goes again. So I've met you. I met you this year. So I didn't meet you last year, but I saw, like I said, I saw you in around. Hannah Henriksen of Respect America. Welcome to Not Conscious. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Awesome. It's so cool to meet up with people in this general space because we don't get to connect like this all the time. But it's interesting because the first time I think I saw you was actually at Palm Springs last year. I may not have seen you at 24. That was my first technical Freedom Fest, but I was so busy figuring out what I'm doing that I probably
Yeah.
don't remember anybody from that time. But I remember yourself. So Respect America, tell us a little bit about what Respect America is, and you have an interesting story of how you came to like Freedom Fest, for example. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. I actually didn't go to the 2024 Freedom Fest. That was the
Oh,
one that I've missed since
okay.
my first in
I,
2021.
I feel
But
better
yeah,
then. I
so
feel way better that I didn't miss you then.
you didn't see me because I didn't exist. Um, I run a small nonprofit called Respect America, and easiest way to explain it is that we're a nonprofit media company. But what we're doing is we're connecting strangers to each other through storytelling. So we've had this really awesome thing where we tell stories about people who have been hurt by coercion. So instances where the government interferes with someone's life, laws when the law goes wrong, or things like that. And we are allowing people to talk about how it's actually impacted them in their lives. And so there's a lot of organizations that are doing legal stuff like Pacific Legal Foundation, Institute for Justice, FIRE, all of those wonderful organizations who are actually fighting for the freedoms of these people. But we're doing it different. We're showing how it actually affected these people and what's going on in their lives after. That's just a
I
quick
love
overview.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of I mean, it's interesting because we see overlaps because we know Spike Cohen, for example, You Are the Power. They're much more of an activist group
Yeah.
probably than yourself. You're more of a narrative person. You spin. I don't want to say spin a narrative, but we create narratives, right? We humans work through story. Jordan Peterson
Yeah.
talks about it, and I think story is a great way to connect people. Speaking of stories, if I may, I was browsing through your website on is it
Yeah.
respectamerica.org, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was on there and I saw a familiar face. So I'd love to hear a little bit about this story about Rebecca Massey. Because I met Rebecca a
Yeah.
couple years ago at Freedom Fest, and she's actually lives near me. She lives in Surprise, I think. I'm in
Yeah.
Phoenix, so we
Oh,
we
cool.
kind of Venn diagram. So I love to hear a little bit about her story and how you connected with her and how the process kind of worked a little bit, if I may, from a if
Yeah.
possible.
Um, I'm so actually so excited you brought Rebecca Massey up, because
That's what I do.
finished we just finished a film about her that we're actually releasing in
Really?
a couple weeks. Yeah, and you didn't know this ahead of time. This wasn't a
You know I'm
planted
psychic,
question.
right? I told you that. I'm not kidding. This is not a joke. Like I know where these questions go. Anyway, okay. I digress.
But yeah, so actually we're going to be releasing her short film in just a couple of weeks. And if you're on, this is a very early access notification about what we're doing. But in a couple of weeks, we'll be letting our email people know, and then we'll be sending it out that way. But Rebecca actually is a really interesting story. So you mentioned Spike Cohen. I'm a big fan of Spike Cohen. He's a great friend and partner in this movement. And we were talking, and he was like, "How can I help you?" And I was like, I need more stories to tell, Spike. I need help. And he's like, "Oh, let me tell you about this lady named Rebecca." So I heard her story about how she was arrested at a city council meeting for very peacefully speaking her mind about how her tax money is being spent. And I was like, that is awful. I hate to hear that. I think people need to know that this happens because, you know, people say, you want to fix a problem, go to your city council. They're the ones to fix it. And it's like, well, this obviously is not the first time this has happened to someone. So Rebecca and I connected, and she'd worked with my writer. We wrote a written article about her. She was just so fantastic to work with. And her story really hit home with so many people. So I reached out to her again. I was like, would you be interested in doing a film and like talking on screen about your story and what happened to you? She was like, absolutely. So the last, boy, probably at least 6 months, we've been working with her, developing this film, developing this idea, doing all the editing, and now we're going to be releasing it pretty soon.
That is awesome, and it's funny because I saw her on there, so I messaged her on X, and I said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm gonna have Hannah on," and she didn't tell me about anything about this movie thing. So that's a beautiful, like a little surprise thing. So Rebecca Massey, the movie, coming out soon. So, all right, so
We say
so
movie,
how?
but it's like a 4 minute film, 4 or 5 minute
Yeah,
film. It's not a huge
it's worth.
feature, just short film. So
So how many of these I don't know, vignettes, I guess? I don't know what you'd call them, these short features. How have you is this the first one that you have scheduled, or have you had a couple in the past, or
we released one a couple years ago, which was a proof of concept almost about a lady named Katie, and you'll find that on our website. And then last April we released our first one about this man named Johnny who was wrongfully arrested and was forced to witness the worst possible thing imaginable, all for asking a question while trying to be a good friend. So we released that one last year. We are a new organization, so as we were doing that, we decided to do a documentary. We did a 30-minute documentary, ran the film festival with that, and that actually released earlier this year. But this is technically our third film, short film, but we're going to have another one coming later this year as well. So we've got a couple of them under our belt, and we're moving forward.
I like it. So you've got a couple in the pipeline that you're kind of constantly working on and everything. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's go into how did you come across Freedom Fest in the movement in the first place? Like how did that part happen? Because what we find is I'll share my story after. I'd love to hear yours first because
Yeah.
you came in right before I did actually. Like you came in a year before I even knew this thing was happening. So
I actually have a really interesting story about how I got involved in this, liberty freedom movement. It's not typical like many others with Ron Paul or with, the world's smallest political quiz that the advocates do. I was in a job interview, finishing up my master's degree, looking to move up to Northern California to be with a boy at the time. And I found this job and I was like, cool, it's a
it's
job, it'll
always a
work.
boy, Hannah.
It's
It's
always a
always a
boy.
boy.
So I found this job. I thought it would be interesting. It's for an agriculture company right in the middle of downtown Sacramento. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. As I'm in my initial interview, the interviewer asked me how I feel about libertarianism because the office is shared with a couple nonprofits. And I was like, I've never even heard of that. Explain it to me. So he did, and I'm like, wow, that kind of sounds like to how the philosophy of how my parents raised me, even though I was very, my parents were very conservative, but how they actually raised me of giving me the opportunities to do things, giving me the freedom, and knowing that my morals were strong enough that I could take care of myself in a lot of things. So I was like, sure, sounds good, whatever. I ended up taking that job and working at the agriculture company for a while, but then kind of got my feet wet with helping out for projects on the nonprofit side. Um, because of one of those projects in 2021, I was able to attend my first Freedom Fest in South Dakota, and I was hooked ever since. Honestly, that event really opened my eyes. I met such incredible people and saw what this world is and just ran with it. So that's my story of my first Freedom Fest and how I got involved with this movement.
I love that. So I don't know if it's a weirder story, but it is weird in
Oh,
its own right.
okay.
So 2022, we're still in this COVID weird stuff, but my girlfriend and I go to Vegas a lot. So we go
Okay.
maybe 4 or 5 times a year. We drive up there because it's like a 4 or 5 hour drive. It's like so close.
Yeah, I was about to say you're pretty
So
close.
yeah, yeah. So we go up to the Mirage. So we're at the Mirage having dinner at Colicchio's Heritage Steakhouse, which Tom Colicchio, go to Kraft if you can in New York. Obviously, Mirage is closed now, but oh my gosh, Tom Colicchio's restaurant's ridiculous. So we're having dinner and we go after and we're playing like video poker around the bar, one of the outside places. And all of a sudden these doors break open and like a huge flood of people come out. And like I'm like, what's going on? And all of a sudden I like see Steve Forbes go across. Like I'm like, I'm like elbowing my girlfriend. I'm like, that's Steve Forbes. What the heck? And I put my head up and I start looking, and all of a sudden there's all this signage for like Freedom Fest. But it's like that baiting Manning effect. Like you don't see it until you see it, and then it's like
Yep.
everywhere, right? And
Hmm.
I looked at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I just watch these groups of people, and they very familiar faces. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I look at it, I go, I'm gonna be here next time. So I didn't go in 23 because I didn't know, but 24, when it was in Vegas, I said, I'm gonna be here. And I did it. And it's like I signed up. Valerie was kind, and Haley, and they were kind and welcomed me, and they're awesome. So that's just a weird, was like just stumble across it. And I think so many do. It's crazy.
It's a really
So
interesting conference. Like there's a lot of, there's a lot of different things that happen there. There's a lot of business and investing, but there's also the like liberty focused stuff, and there's also the like networking things. So there's like a big tent that people that attend Freedom Fest can fall under, but it's really cool because at the end of the day, it's a Freedom Fest. We're looking for free, like we're trying to increase our freedoms and we're trying to keep our freedoms. So it's really cool.
cool. I
Awesome.
love that. And it's interesting because I have weird perspectives, as I've shared with you, and we'll probably talk about them. But I think freedom and liberty are conflated, much like courtesy and respect, like we talked about. So I love to talk a little bit about the liberty and freedom, but then let's transition it to the respect, because that's what we're here for, is to build the respect. So like
Yeah.
what I find is like freedom, what I'm finding is people want their freedoms, and with freedoms, there doesn't seem to be a structure associated with it. It's very ethereal. Like I just get to do what I want. But liberty has like an associative responsibility, accountability,
Hmm.
because it's like I know that if I can do this, I can certainly do this action, but if I do this, what are my consequences ahead of doing it? What are the things that could be, what I mean? What are the outcomes ahead of time? And I feel like
Yeah.
that's much more the liberty movement than the freedom movement. Like freedom movement is just like, let me do what I want. It's like, that's, what I mean? It needs to be a little tighter constrained than that. And I'm curious, you talked about your upbringing.
Yeah.
How did your upbringing parallel, like more like the liberty with the accountability and all that? Because you talk about conservative, and it is a little bit more conservative, and we find a lot of libertarian people to be coming from the left, ideologically, which is really interesting because I came from the right also. I was like a
Yeah.
grade 8 neocon. So love to hear your
Interesting.
thoughts on that.
It's the cool thing about like liberty and like the movement in general is that the underlying mission is that we just don't force other people to do something. So, like you said, there are people coming from the left, there are people coming from the right, but at the end of the day, it's their personal morals that say that they're not going to force or coerce or steal or do anything to negatively harm someone else. And that's kind of, pulling that back to my childhood. I was raised by fantastic parents. I had a lot of freedoms, I had a lot of liberty, but going back to the definition, like definitional difference, I knew that if I did something wrong, I wouldn't have as much freedom anymore. I wouldn't have the ability to do something if I got in trouble for something. Um, so
Because you
I
broke a
stayed out of
trust of
trouble.
some sort, or there was
Yeah.
something broken that was not whole anymore,
Yeah. But
by
also my mom
by
was really
violating
scary.
the contract, right?
Yeah, and my mom was really scary and I did not want to upset
Oh,
her. So
well, first of
she
all, you were an imposing person in real life, so I can't imagine what your mom would have been like, like standing over you or something. It's just how
oh,
imposing.
my so he said I'm 6'3". I played volleyball forever. I'm a very big person in real life, not just on this little box in your screen.
Tall person.
Tall person, sure. I'm a very tall person. Anyways, my mom was 5'7", but it was her attitude. She was a pit bull. She was feisty. Um, and yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share anything about your mom or anything about that? Because we kind of connect a little bit outside from that. We don't need to. We can
Oh,
certainly move on. But
I'm fine talking about it. My mom passed a couple years ago due to breast cancer, and actually
sorry for
around
your loss.
thank you. And around the time that she passed actually was early 2023. And I had taken a little bit of time away from work as I was kind of doing different things for smaller nonprofits. And I have a weird background. I have a degree in kinesiology. I thought I was going to be a doctor. I thought that was the best way to help people and save the world, you know. Um, and then I got involved with this and realized that there's more ways to do that. So as my mom was dying of cancer, I was able to have some liberty to take some time with her, which was so incredibly amazing. And during that time, I was working on little projects here and there. And once I was able to get back into work after she passed and kind of came back into myself, I had the board of one of the organizations I was working around and with ask me to run the organization. And it's Respect America. So we took the organization offline. We were more state-based organizations at the time. We took it offline, we rebranded, we rebuilt, new mission statement, new vision, all of that stuff. And then they're like, hey, do you want to run it? And I was like, sure, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out along the way. But luckily, I had my master's in business administration. That helped me along with my very diverse background of skills and being raised in a family that own their own business. And I've still figuring it out every day, but it's been the greatest blessing.
That is really cool. And yeah, I heard you mention kinesiology before.
Yeah.
Do you still practice that at all, or?
Um, so I I like the body. I think the body's really interesting. I don't pursue anything about it as much anymore. I'm still active. I've had 2 knee surgeries this year, 5 orthopedic surgeries overall in the last couple just because of volleyball and stuff. So I have to know my body, and I'm really grateful I've had the past knowledge of knowing when something's wrong, but also I have a really great physical therapist. Um, and yeah, so kind of a little bit in my personal life, but not professionally, no.
Nice. It's interesting. I did work. I work with like a medical medium before, and they do some kinesiology. I've seen it with like lie detection. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever played with that. I'm sure you probably did that
I
before. And
haven't.
interesting. So I have a really interesting story about kinesiology that you might
Okay.
find interesting. Maybe you won't. So the 2024 Freedom Fest, I met a woman named Shelby Hosanna from Unjected. I don't know if you're familiar
Okay.
with them, but they're the COVID. They're like anti-vax, like a social group for people who didn't vaccinate. So
Interesting.
it's really cool. It's a really cool group of people. Well, they were having an event in Phoenix the next Monday, and they're like, "Hey, do you like fighting? Do you like mixed martial arts?" And I'm like, "Who doesn't? I guess I don't know, but yeah, yes." So they're like, "Okay, if you go to this event, you might see Pat Miletich from like way old school MMA. Like he's like, I
Yeah.
think his first one was like UFC 12. I'm not kidding. Like that
Okay.
was his first UFC. We're in the 329, I think, is something like
Something
that.
like
So
that. Yeah.
old school guy. Okay. So I'm like, the Pat Miletich, right? So I go to the event and they're like, okay, Pat was there just for a second. He's like, okay, what we want to do, let's have lunch at your house. I'm like, okay, what do you want? He goes, he likes steak. I go, okay, steak. He goes, it's got to be no antibiotics, pure blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, pure antibiotics. He goes, you got to get like 10 of them. I'm like, okay, 10 steaks. Bro. So I go through this whole thing. I go to this butcher that's local. I buy $400 of meat. I just buy like
My goodness.
11, 10 or 11 steaks. I come home and I do the sous vide thing where you do it in the bath and then you like you torch on the outside. So
Yeah.
3 people came over. 3. But Pat was one of them. So it totally was cool. Check this
Well,
out.
you had
He
good
had this
leftovers.
it was totally I had plenty of leftovers, but it was great. So he enjoyed it. It was great. Great experience. And then I got to like roll with him like in a session after, which was ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, no, I can't even wash this guy's socks. Like I'm not even close. But this is what I found out. There was this machine that he had, and I didn't sign
Okay.
an NDA. I just talked to these guys. I'm not going to say any other names or anything. They had this machine that had this like you put your palm print on it and it imprints you on it.
Hmm.
And then they put these minerals or these crystals on it and they do this thing and they did the kinesiology test with me
Yeah.
and they put these crystals on the thing that can make you weak and I literally just went like that with me And then he did this
Interesting.
other thing, and I could literally lift him off the ground almost. It was the weirdest thing. Have you ever come across that in your kinesiology? Uh,
It sounds
like,
like it might have been some like um neuron things. So like God, I'm gonna get really into the nerdy bits of it.
uh,
And obviously I haven't done any kinesiology
okay,
science things for
yeah,
a
but if
while.
you like nerdiness, this is the place to nerd out. So if you like
Great.
doing it, I welcome it, but you don't need to.
Good, good.
I don't want, I don't
Okay.
want you to expose yourself as a nerd.
Um, just like it brings me back to like biology in like the fourth grade when you make the cell and you learn about all the neurons and how there's a positive and neutral and then there's a negative and things are going around. It makes me think there must have been some sort of like electric charge since all of our cells are positive, negative. Everything in the world is positive and negative. And they all just kind of fight each other. But it makes me think that there must have been some sort of electric charge that those crystals and things did to make that happen. It sounds interesting. I don't know a lot about it. I have not really looked into science in a couple of years, but it sounds really interesting.
Once again, I'm stream of consciousness. It just popped me because of your background in kinesiology. Because I remembered going, oh my God, I can't do anything with my arms. And then the other thing, I was just like, it was a weird thing. And I think it is some quanta like imprint of some sort. I just found it weird. All right. So let's get back to respect.
Yeah.
So Respect America existed and you rebranded. The desire to stay with Respect America, was it a pretty well known brand at the time to continue the name, and or what did you think about the name, and why did you continue it that way? Like, what are your thought process when you were doing all that stuff?
So originally we were state-based organizations and our goal was to so we have a bunch of different website domains. We have respect in every possible iteration of the states, from our main two that we were working with are Respect Idaho and Respect New Hampshire. And we were building these communities in these states to allow people to kind of talk to each other. It's been a long time since I've really looked into what we used to do. But it was more state-based organizations connecting local people to each other to work through different political things, not political, philosophical things. We've always
Yeah.
been a 501c3. It was never political. My brain just went to the wrong place. But we realized that we would have better impact really connecting with people, regardless of where they are. So, whenever we took the brands offline, we were Respect Idaho, Respect New Hampshire. We decided to instead be Respect America because we want people from all across the country to be bought into this and to be working with other people, whether they are or are not in their community state region of the US. We wanted to connect more people to strangers. So,
So a little more universal uh,
yeah,
approach to
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
like that. So let's talk about a little bit about respect, because once again, the Spike thing about respect and everything, it's such a it is important, but I always think it's like a yes and, like we talked about. I
yeah,
always thought there's a precursor to the respect, and I kind of see that as like a courtesy thing, where
yeah,
before you get to the level of respect where you start trusting person, you have to be able to show that you're trustworthy, right? So certain things like, oh, is someone, holding a door open for someone, letting someone in
yeah,
traffic, these are more courteous things regardless of the level of respect we have for each other. How
yeah.
do you ever think about incorporating that in some way, or how do you incorporate the like just the general human kindness, from the through respect, or up and through respect, I guess.
Yeah, so I want to clarify something. What we're working through, each of these articles, each of these films that we're creating, we put them through a lens of something called the philosophy of human respect or the moral philosophy of human respect. So we're not just saying like respect as the word, not just
Yeah, it's not.
defining
Yeah,
it
it's
as,
not an
yeah,
ambiguous, like ethereal thing. You actually have it's a
yeah.
purpose structured thing
It's
for
a
it. Yeah, I
very
love that.
specific scientific cause and effect relationship. And what we've seen in our research pre me and since I've been here around, is that anytime force, fraud, theft, violence is enacted upon someone, their happiness goes down. And whether you specifically describe it in your life as you want to be happy, everything we do in our world is for us to eventually be happy. If you want your family to be safe, it's because that will make you happy. If you want to if you want to go to school and you're going to be hating life every single day for the next 4 years, you're doing that because you assume and you hope at the end of that what you get out of it will make you happy. So it's not just right now, I stub my toe and now I'm mad, like, or like I keep you from driving because you've had maybe a couple too many drinks and now you're mad at me. It's the overall impact of what it is that you're doing. So with human respect, the philosophy of human respect, like I said, very scientific, which is great because I love science. Very scientific, very specific of
Nerd.
anytime
Sorry.
nerd, yeah, definitely. Anytime force or fraud, theft or violence are enacted against you, your happiness goes down. So that's different from just respect. It's human respect.
100%. And obviously the pursuit of happiness is
Yep.
actually like literally written in the paperwork,
Yeah,
even though
it's right
it's
there.
all worthless, but it's still great that someone had at least the guts to write it down somewhere for once, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. Yeah, and it is. It's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and once again, as long as your liberties don't infringe on another's, because if you affect their happiness, then that's not a good thing. That's just generally not good. So
Yeah. And
ha- oh, go ahead.
you go ahead. That's okay.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh no, I was done. So if you had a thought,
Oh,
please.
okay. Um, I wanted to say like how we interact with our friends is we're not enacting violence against them. We're not stealing things from them. We're not, you know, doing things to negatively harm them. And that's very important because, as our title, what we're talking about is how people treat each other, regardless of who this person is that you're interacting with, whether it's your friend or your family or even a stranger. You should still use that human respect ideology against and with anything that you decide to do or exist around this person as.
I like that. I very much like that. So we've covered some of this stuff. Is there any topic or anything that's come up recently that you'd like to share a story of that you're working on or something else you have going on?
Well, we have the two films. We have the Rebecca Massey's, which is going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And then we have another one that will be coming out later this year. Um, but what we're really working towards is getting people to realize that, the rules of the playground, you don't hurt people, you don't take their stuff. And it's because it'll make people less happy. And we just have to be reminded of that sometimes. So we're telling stories of when that happened
Yeah,
and why it
I
should.
like that. I have a question outside of that. So in
Okay.
addition to that part, do you also kind of flirt on the fringes of how like what we support could also be tyrannical even though we don't realize it is? For example, like taxation, for example. We're like, oh, okay, to live in a good society, we ought to pay taxes, right? Well, you and I would argue that taxation is theft. Well, how would you collect that taxation if you were not to pay because you think you're being stolen from, right? So do you do any kind of things like that where you kind of let people give them the rope to hang themselves with their own ideology in a weird way, but in a graceful way? Because like you mentioned, like you probably came from a different part, like a different side of this than I did too. And we come to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We do. So, along with storytelling, we do really talk about the philosophy of human respect, like I've been talking about. But we want
Yeah.
people to realize that this is how they should live their lives. So, we take that, and with our stories, we talk about the individual person. So, the first film that we released last year is about this man named Johnny. He's an attorney in South Carolina, and he was out picking up a friend who was out the night before a wedding at a rehearsal dinner, and he knew the people inside. He showed up, he saw his friend was outside of the bar hanging out. He decided to pop inside really quick and just say hi to the friends and then take his friend home. When he came outside, his friend was arrested face down on the ground. And being an attorney, being a good friend, he walked up to the police officers, had his hands up, and he asked, I'm an attorney. We have a wedding tomorrow. Where are you taking him so I can pick him up? And because of that, the police officers start pushing him. They start, being upset with him, telling him to leave. And he's like, I'm just asking a question. So they arrest him. And he gets in the back car and he says, what am I being arrested for? And they said exactly that right there, asking a question. So obviously that's not illegal. But where we're getting our messaging in with that is that any normal person, I don't know you I don't know you very well, but I would never, if you ask me a question, I'm not going to grab you, throw you in a box and say, you can't do that. Like, I'm going to be like,
I hope
hey,
not.
either answer the question or be like, I'm not comfortable answering that question. I hope that you can respect that and move on with our lives. I wouldn't just throw you in a box and say, you shouldn't have asked me that question. How dare you? So, what we're doing is we're wanting people to realize stuff like that, like taxation, is that you don't have the choice of pay it. If you don't pay it, someone shows up on your doorstep with a gun. Just like any other law that's out there, is that it's enforced by a gun and they will force you to do it, or you will be taken and put in a box just like Johnny was. Did that answer your
Interesting.
question?
Yeah, 100%,
Okay.
100%. And it's interesting because we talk like I get embroiled on like these back and forth with people who just don't get it, and it's fine. But it gives me an opportunity to hone my debating skills. You know what I mean? So I'll go on
Yeah,
Facebook and I come across people that are talking about like hate crimes and hate speech. I'm like, there is no hate anything. You commit a crime, it doesn't matter if hate is in front of it or not. Like if you murder someone, if it was due to racism or just because they had a disagreement, the guy's not less dead. You know what I mean? Like it may
exactly.
explain it, or you can look back and go, okay, because that guy was racist, that occurred. Okay, fine, but it's not like a hate. Like I never understood that. Do you ever have any kind of things with universities you must try to go into, and there's a lot of this kind of indoctrination of that? Do you have this crossover where you're the respect and the way we perceive hate crimes or hate, speech and whatever? Do you have any of these conflicts as you explain your philosophies?
Honestly, I've never had that issue before. I've never been asked this question.
Yes. I'm just kidding. I
Just,
could ask you
you
like
got
a
me
weird
floundering a
question and
little
no one
bit.
would have asked you before, like, what's the capital of Mars? Something like that, but I wouldn't do that to you. Anyway.
Um, isn't
Well, I
it
hope
an
I didn't
M?
throw you. Hope it makes sense
Um,
a little bit the way I ask it.
yeah, so feelings are really tough, you know, and I could say something, to you that you might think is funny, or we might have like an inside joke about something, but if somebody else overhears it, it might upset them. And I never intended to upset someone. I hope I don't ever intentionally upset people. I don't want to do that. Um, but at the end of the day, what we're really, really talking about is that initial action, that action of stealing something from someone or hurting someone or enacting violence. And although, yes, words can be very, very hurtful, we're talking about the more things about physical violence and stealing and those kinds of things. So, like, we're coming back to Rebecca Massey, her speaking at her city council meeting and saying, hey, this guy is expected to get a raise. You guys just increase our taxes. I don't think this is right because we're in a small city. He's getting paid more already than most people in bigger cities that are in the same position. And I don't agree with that. That is not hate speech, but that is not, that's not aggressive. That's not an awful thing to do. But someone was still upset and offended by it. And that was the city council head person, whatever, who said, you can't do that. And they arrested her. So regardless of how meticulously you may choose your words, some people might still have a problem with it. But we really look at that initiation of force whenever the police officer grabbed Rebecca and threw her out in the hallway and left her 10-year-old daughter inside that city council meeting by herself, and then took her to jail simply for speaking.
Yeah, it's awful. It's just an awful thing, and it's interesting because we look at like state overreach, and
Yeah.
and we look at this bipartisanship because it's all distracting. Oh, these lefties were killed by ICE agents. Well, Ashley Babbitt was shot by a okay. Which one was state overreach? Spoiler alert, they all are. So is
All of it.
Waco. So is Ruby Ridge. So is Killdozer. So you can literally go through so many of these. Well, Killdozer, I guess, is a little different example because he involved himself at the end of it. He
Yeah.
snapped, but he went after the targets, only the targets that he really felt infringed by. I mean, he did systematically go through, but we find these, all of them are state overreach. So like, how do you and I, what's a good way you and I can remove the partisanship? Is like, you can agree that Daniel Shaver was also mistreated, just like Breonna Taylor was mistreated, for example.
Yeah.
How do we bridge that? Because I feel like so much is divisive. But it's the left
Yeah.
side that got attacked by the right guy. So that kind of stuff.
So we're we're kind of taking a step back in everything we do. The issue is never, to increase taxes. It's not wrongful arrest, it's coercion. So we're taking a step back from the partisanship and we're just connecting people. So if you and I commit right now to not enact force or violence against another person, which means I won't vote for something that's going to take someone's liberties away. I won't vote for a politician that is going to enact something by force. I can take that oath right now and say that. Um, but it also takes the other people, the people that are being politicians, for them to realize and think about how I interact with other people matters. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but to go to the thought of the partisanship of it all, what we see that's really cool is that we are taking a step back, telling people stories, connecting strangers to each other. And we see such incredible responses to it. So whenever we first started back up again, like, I would go through every single comment we had on social media, and I don't have the time to do that now. I really wish I did. I look, maybe once a week, do a little glance, but we had some really, really great experiences where we told someone's story. We talked about what's actually happened to them, what the problem was of this agency feeling that they can do something, this person deciding that they can do something against another person. And in the comments, we had, Mima Joan over here that has MAGA Republican, very like in her bio in Twitter, X, whatever. I don't, whatever. You
It's
know what
all
I
the
mean.
same. It doesn't matter. It's all the
Um,
same schlock.
so you could see these people's bios. You can go through their profile and see exactly how they feel politically. And so we have Grandma Joan over here that's saying this is a really awful thing that happened to this person. This never should have happened. The next comment down, you see someone that has Bernie Sanders all pasted all over their profile. Everything that they do is positive Bernie Sanders, negative Trump. And they're saying this is an awful thing that happened to this human. This never should have happened. Like, this should not be happening. So we're really bringing people from across all of the political spectrums. And I have so many stories of that specific instance where you see people from both sides, very obviously different side opinions, that are coming together and saying that this is an awful thing that happened. And I think that is really so important. We're going about it from a different way. We're connecting strangers to each other to tell their stories. I I have this really I was at this event last year where we wrote down different people in our life. We went with like the really close friends that we talk to every day that knows basically every thought. And I have a really close friend of mine that I can be like, hey, you know what I was thinking? And she tells me what I was thinking. She has we have that bond. And then we went like further. We went like the people that we would have dinner with once a month, or the people that like we see out in public that we know. And then we looked down on it and it was like, what do all these people have in common? And it was like, well, they're all different. We got a lot of different ages, we have a lot of different everything. But the thing that was most worthwhile to me was that I realized that I have friends from all across the political spectrum. I have friends that were telling me how excited that they were to go to an AOC rally. And I have other friends that are over here that think Trump is the cat's pajamas. And then I have friends in the middle that are like, oh, I don't like either of them. And I think that is so important. And we're missing that in our society. We are missing that diversity of opinions and ideas and feelings around us. And the reason why I'm friends with all these people is because we started first with relationships. We told stories about our lives, we told stories about our family, we had these shared experiences, and then we found out later that our politics are a bit different. And I think that is the most wonderful thing that could be happening. And so it was gorgeous, it was fantastic to see that happening in a comment section with strangers, very different parts of the political spectrum, having similar opinions and feelings and communicating respectfully towards each other.
I love that. That's great because humanity is the universal connecting feature. I mean, we all,
Absolutely.
let's be honest, we might have variance within the species, but there's still a range that we kind of all experience similar things.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And what I really like, and I don't know if you're familiar with Gad Sad, but I'm not personally a fan of Gad Sad, I might say, but scientifically speaking, he's got some good ideas. He has a thing called suicidal empathy. And basically
Okay.
it's a concept he finally coined a term. I've been screaming it from the rooftops forever. It's just they weaponize our compassion against us. So
Okay.
what they
Interesting.
do is they'll create a law that protects a group or groups, but that infringes on others for that to exist. And what I love about you is you're going outside of that force, the coercion that you're talking about, right? It's like we don't need a get along law. We just need to get along.
Well,
Like
yeah.
it's like it's already there because if we don't get along, then we do other things to each other. It's already like those things are already covered. So let's work on getting along or something.
Well, I truly believe that like politics is downstream from culture. Like culture is going to happen first. Things are going to happen in real life. We've seen it with Rosa Parks. We've seen it with gay marriage. We've seen it with, everything else across the spectrum over the history of our country, of our lives, of our existence. Things change first. People rally around things. They come together, they have these opinions, they have these things that really, really matter to them. They build a community through conversations, through petitioning, through having rallies, through just word of mouth. They get people on their side, and then eventually it becomes so big that the law changes or that this policy changes. Something changes because the community, the culture was able to come together and make this difference together and to just come together for it. And that's gorgeous. That's fantastic. So
And
that's
that's
what we're
great
doing.
that you're a facilitator of that. I mean, that's such a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
I'm
So
trying to still change the world.
I love it. You're going to change it just one, and it is really one connection at a time. And you don't know which connection's the one that's the most important. It's going to come
Mhm.
back and like come back in 10 years and be like, you have no idea the effect you had on my life, those types of things. It's one of those beautiful things. Have you had anyone ever come back and just after like maybe a bit of time apart or something, kind of update you and go, oh my gosh, thank you for something you did, like a positive story you could share of how you were able to help someone?
Um,
I mean,
Not
you sound like
yet.
just a generally helpful person. It sounds like you
Oh,
would do
thanks.
anything for someone. So it's not. I'm not trying to like pin you in a corner, but if you could think of one, that would be just a beautiful thing to share.
Um, People are really important to me if you haven't seen that. And I'm so grateful for the work that I get to do because I get to work so much with people and it is very emotional. It's very sad. I cry a lot, which is not great. But it's because I care so much and I think that's why this means so much to me. But going back to your question, we're still a new organization. We just publicly relaunched back in October of 24. So we've really only been around for about a year and a half now. But what we're doing with our email audience is that we're sending surveys and we send them periodically, just about quarterly. Which reminds me, I have one, gotta do one.
I have homework
But
for you. I just We're going to assign you some homework after this.
Task list. We survey the people in our email audience to see how they're feeling about things, to see how they've shifted since they've learned about us and Respect America, since they've heard about the philosophy of human respect, if they've seen anything different. And we've actually had some really cool instances of people saying that they've changed their mind on something, or they've opened up their heart to listen to someone, or that they've decided that that this politician is too much and they're no longer supporting them. And I think that matters. That's the start of something. And if we can continue that, if we can continue people sharing our videos, sharing our articles, talking about what we're doing, communicating with each other, and just relying on each other a little more, and instead of seeing a homeless person on the corner, I keep snacks in my purse. I like to snack. I have, protein bars and whatever in my bag, in my car, and my backpack. And instead of seeing a homeless person on the side of the road and thinking, "Oh, there's a government agency that can do that. There's a soup kitchen open around the corner. I don't need all three of these chopsticks. I can hand them off. I can go get more." Doing the one individual thing that you can to make something else better is important. And that's what we're trying to do. So it's really cool to see that some people are having that. Some people are doing that. And that's what matters. That's what matters.
And it is cumulative. I mean, the small steps do
Yeah.
accumulate to bigger things. They just do. So I love that. So how can we get a hold of you and this fledgling, growing, blossoming organization? How can we contact you so we can grow this thing?
Yeah. My our website is respectamerica.org. We're very active all over social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We are also on TikTok and YouTube. And as a media company, I'm talking about the different stories. We post a video every week of me talking about different things. So it'll be like a short 1 minute clip. You'll see this background there too, um, where I'm just talking about the stories we're working on, or something that I saw in the world that needed to be addressed. And so that's very active on our YouTube channel and our TikTok. We post other things on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well. Um, but you can reach out to us. My email is hannah@respectamerica.org. You can also go to our website. We have like a submit a story place. We're always looking for more stories to tell. We're always interested in talking to people who have been personally hurt by coercive agents. We want to tell your story. We're always looking for more stories to be told. And then once you find us on social media, once you find us via our email list, share our stories. Share it with someone you know, share it with someone you don't know. I had someone call me about a month ago because they were talking to this stranger, that then they were telling something that happened, and like, "Oh, you need to talk to Respect America. They need to hear your story." So that person was talking to a stranger at a grocery store. That person called me, told me, their story. And unfortunately, we can't tell every story. But that's what this is about. It's about talking to people and connecting with each other. So once you find us, send us your stories. We do want to hear them. Like I said, we can't do all of them, but I do want to hear it.
And the truth is, regardless of whether you can put any kind of extra energy behind it, just that person being able to trust someone to share that with someone is so vital. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just that someone feels heard or feels seen or feels, you know what I mean? Feels at least that someone took the time to listen, regardless of the
Yeah.
outcome. I mean, it's a lot of the walls come down just from that, regardless of the rest of the actual outcome, right? It is
Yeah.
interesting, the humanity part.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I just wish I could do more. I wish I could tell every story, and we just can't. We
We
are
all
a
wish we could do
nonprofit.
everything.
Yeah.
It's
We
true.
have a
We really
mission. We
do
have
wish we could
very
all do this.
Yeah. So I
Beautiful.
was telling one of my friends last night, I have too many hobbies. I have too many things I like to do, and I wish I could do more, but I have to sleep. And that's kind of how I feel about this too. Is I wish we could do more. I wish we could tell more stories, but we do have a mission, something we have to stay within the bounds of. We have a board I have a board that I have to report to. So me not telling anyone's story is not personal. It's not because I have a vendetta against you. It's because I have very specific guide rails, and that's positive and great in many
Yeah, but
ways.
once again, you've opened the door for them to share. And
Absolutely.
to be honest, that's more than 50% of it. It absolutely is. I mean, even for that person in their whatever trauma or healing that they have to go through, whatever they feel, however they were wronged or coerced, things like that. So I really love that, Hannah. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Knocked Conscious. You're welcome anytime. If you have any kind of special thing you want to announce or anything, you're welcome on. Is there anything else, any other topics you wanted to address? This is your time to shine. We're here to help promote Respect America. So
Boy. I'd say just if you're listening out there and you're interested in what we're doing, sign up for our email list. You'll hear a lot of these same stories that I've told you. You'll hear more stories. We release new ones every other week. And you'll get to see Rebecca's video in a couple weeks whenever we release it.
I am very excited to hear that. So on that note, we'll just call it, everybody. Everyone go to respectamerica.org. It's Hannah at respectamerica.org. And that's with an H, Hannah. Don't forget, not the other one. You have
Spelled
to spell that
correctly.
out correctly, right? Is it the palindrome one that's forward and backward,
Yep.
or which is that
Yep.
correct? Okay, I didn't want to say that
Palindrome.
I get them mixed up with acronyms and jargon, and I didn't want to say the wrong thing. So I'm so glad it was palindrome. So
Yep.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone else, next week we have Mark Maresca of the White Pillbox, and he was at Approaching Humanity event with Larkin Rose up in Sedona this weekend. I'm excited that he's going to share a lot of stuff. And Hannah, do you know Dr. Ken Smiles? Ken,
I don't
the guy who
believe
takes
so.
pictures of everybody at Freedom Fest, usually
I
wears
thought
like
that
a
was
pretty
Ovens.
Ovens takes a lot of pictures, but there's a
Yeah.
gentleman who's bald who just does pictures like he has his own booth. I don't know if okay.
Mhm.
I'll have to connect you two because I think it would give so much exposure. The first person I met at Freedom Fest. I was like putting
Really?
equipment together and I had no idea what I was doing, fumbling around. He goes, "Hey, get up there, get up on that wall. I'm gonna take a picture. Smile." And he gives me a card and I took a picture and he made a book with all these smiles. So I'll connect you, Dr. Ken Smiley. But he's coming on
Awesome.
August 10th. But next week, once again, Larkin, we get to talk about Larkin Rose with Mark Maresca, who I met last week for the first time. Such an amazing person. So Hannah, thank you again for joining us. This has been great. And everyone, this has been another Knocked Conscious. Stick around after this. We'll just close things off. There's like an outro, but stick around. Don't hang up quite yet. Okay. Thanks,
Sounds good.
everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.
Take care.